Hey everyone, I'm back working on the Perentie. This time I'm fixing up the front flares. I've already done the driver's side, doing the passenger side now. And while I'm doing the flare, I'm also going to be changing this blinker unit over, just because I've got some new ones and the old ones are a little bit faded. Just to show you a bit of a difference there between the two. So we've got the new one on top and the old one underneath. So to do that job really easily, having the flare off makes a big difference, but the first thing I need to do before I even take the flare off is to take the tyre off to make easy access to the area. So originally, to keep the flares in are these black plastic thingamybobs, and how they work is they've got a hole in the centre where you push a black plastic rod or pin through, and as that goes through it spreads that, which keeps it on. Which sometimes you can push them in by hand, but usually get them in probably about halfway, 2/3 by hand, and then you might get a rubber mallet, plastic hammer, and push them in the rest of the way. These work fine, but the only thing is that these new flares that I got, which are not genuine Land Rover ones, which I couldn't find, all makes brand, and they don't line up very well at all, and it's too hard to try and push these in and then line it up at the same time. So instead I'm going to go the rivnut option with some bolts. So the best way I found to get these out, just with a thin screwdriver, push them through. Sometimes you might need a hammer on the end of the screwdriver and they come out pretty easily. The other option is, if there's a little bit sticking out like there is on this one, you can get some pliers and pull them out. Got the flare off. These are all those pins, the rods. I lost most of those, but it doesn't matter. I don't really need to keep many of them. I did use these when I did the rear flares and they worked perfectly, but the flares that I actually had for the rear were genuine Land Rover ones and they matched up perfectly. There's more flex in it because they were more of a rubbery plastic, whereas these ones are a hard plastic, so there's no giving them. So now that I've got that off, my next step is to change over this blinker, and you can see all the wiring in there. So find that there. A little bit hard to do one hand. We come down and we've got this cable here, green one, and we have a black one going in there. Let's put down the camera so I can get that done. Now I've got these out, all I need to do is just carefully pull the blinker unit out. There is the blinker out. So here is the other side, driver's side one. Now you see here they've got these little pins. So the new unit has those two bolts there, which don't quite line up with those holes, so I'm just going to file them out a little bit with a round file, and then I'll put a washer and nut on the other side. Oh, I should add that this one here, so it's already got the right pins to go on, but it is much longer. See the difference there in length? About 2-3 times as long. So, but instead of cutting that, all I'm going to do is just wrap it up with a cable tie. So this one I actually didn't have to file, the other one was just slightly out for whatever reason. So I've got 2 washers on the back. It's a bit tight behind there, but not too bad. Not as bad as behind the dash, that's for sure. So before I tie all of this excess cable up, I'm just going to put it in, check that it's all working, and then I will do that up with a spanner and tie all this up with a zip tie too. So you can see that everything's working fine. It's much clearer than the old one. So all I did was on the back of the blinker, with those 2 bolts that are already through it, was put one of these nuts. Now, because when it does go through, there's not a lot of thread left, so I've used a fairly thin nut with the washer. That's the blinker unit done. I think the bird poo across it really sets it off. So in here you can see I've just cable tied these together and tucked it behind there with the rest of the cabling. Plenty of room in there, a lot of cabling but plenty of room, and it gets all covered up by the flare anyway. So that's my next job. Before, these plastic parts were in here. So these are the riv nut inserts just here. So these just go in here like that, and then very similar to a pop rivet and a pop rivet gun, squeeze it in and the back will squish out and pull in, and leave that there, so then you can screw bolts into. Just put this on here, make sure you've got the outside down first. Screw it down. Now, need to make sure that you've got your handles out, and then you screw it down. Now, I'm no expert with these, but because I'm putting them into aluminium, I'm not doing the full leverage of the handles, so I'm going to about that much. So full, and then to about that much. And then it's just simple squeeze, and then it's stuck in there, and then you just unscrew here, and what that's doing is unscrewing the thread up here, so it is unscrewing out of the riv nut that's just been put in, just like you would a bolt. And then you have it ready to go. So I'll go ahead, I'll do the rest. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 on the outside, and 1, 2, 3, 4 on the inside. So I've just finished doing all the riv nut inserts. It doesn't take too long, about 20 minutes maybe, and I move pretty slow doing it. So the next job is to fit the flare up. I have had to trim a little bit from underneath, just because it does hit here a little bit. When I say hit, it overlaps, and when it does that, it pushes the flare out, which tries to push it out from here. So just by trimming a little bit between these two, and the same over here, I'm only talking like 3-4 mils. Just by taking that bit off, it just gives you a little bit of a gap here, and that way it's not pushing on here when it goes up tight against the outside of. So this is the result after putting all the bolts and washers in. This one over here, I just put a bigger washer on just because it didn't line up. There is still a bit of a gap at the top. Beforehand though, that gap was big enough to put your finger in because of the plastic ones that were there before, whereas now it's probably about a 20-cent coin. So it's better, but not great. I'm not going to take the blame for that. I'll just blame the make of these flares by All Makes, because as I said, when I did the rear with the genuine ones, they just went on perfect, no gaps at all.